Should we do waterfall? Shh. All right, if everybody could sit down, we're going to go ahead and get started. Final panel today. Really exciting topic. What is the role of government in entrepreneurship? So you want to be attentive and here and present for the amazing things that are going to be shared today. All right. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Joanna Nelson. I am the director for the City of Santa Fe's Office of Economic Development, filling in right now as the interim director for the Office of Affordable Housing. I love the topic that was just covered earlier about how do we get entrepreneurs to stay here. Housing is a big deal amidst everything that we're talking about today. I'm really honored to be here with this really great panel. Thank you to Lisa. Thank you to Kara for putting on such a great day for us. Feeling inspired and motivated and proud to end it with this panel. So I want to introduce our panel. We have Isaac Romero, who is the Deputy Cabinet Secretary of the New Mexico Economic Development. And we have Representative Meredith Dixon, representative of District 20. Thanks for being here, Representative. And we have Emerson Horace III, who is the CFO for the Navajo Nation's Division of Economic Development. Wow, impressive. I got all of those titles of these really important people. And we're going to kick it off today and get talking about one of my favorite topics. What is the role of government? Amidst everything that we're talking about, government plays a big part of this. Thanks for the shout out from Hunter, talking about all the ways that the city of Santa Fe, as well as the state, have been instrumental in supporting the amazing work at Ubiquity. So let's jump into it. And I'm going to pitch an icebreaker to you guys. Considering New Mexico, the rich history that we have here, the culture, the spirit of entrepreneurship, let's start big. What's your bold idea, bold opportunity of how we can build on that legacy and government can support entrepreneurship? Anybody want to take a crack?
So, all right. A little out of order on our thought process here. Okay, so big opportunity here in New Mexico. So, you know, as you were talking about sort of the history and legacy of New Mexico, I was thinking about the national labs and Los Alamos. One of the things I've been hearing recently in meetings and other conferences, which I like, and I think it's a great motto, is private sector led, government enabled. And I think that does tie to some of the work that was done by the national labs and what they continue to do by supporting smaller businesses and commercializing technologies. So I would really like to see this state dig into economic development, supporting our entrepreneurs, working with our national labs, our universities, really supporting all of the components that make up this ecosystem.
Thank you. So I'll jump in here, and the disadvantage of being closest to the moderators, they look to you first. But our, when we think about this, and thanks, Representative, for those words. I think primarily when we talk about the theme of this panel, which is what's the role in government in entrepreneurship and innovation, and building off of what Representative Dixon said, we need to know what that is. So we want to create partnerships and understand what the role is that government can play to create catalysts and maximize those opportunities for our entrepreneur community and business growth and development and innovation. So really tell us what we can do to, one, get out of our own way and create opportunities that catalyze those investments and other opportunities.
Okay. Hello. Hi, my name is Emerson Horace the third. And actually my name should be Emerson Horace Kwani. And my clan is Ushihi, and I'm born for the Hopi. So my great-grandfather's name was Emerson Horace Quaney. And somewhere along the line, they changed it to Emerson Horace. So my grandfather was Emerson Horace, my dad, Emerson Horace, and I'm Emerson Horace III. So I am Navajo and Hopi. My mom's originally from Tuba City, Arizona, on the western side of the Navajo Nation. And my dad is from Oribe, Kukutswami. It's a small village within the Navajo Nation. So picture 27,000 acres of Navajo land, and right in the center is the Hopi Reservation. And so think about the Hopis as the heart of the Navajo people. So Ms. Begay here will probably conflict with that. So, but we identify ourselves by our clans, and so my mom is Sauk clan, and then our economy is based upon a paternalistic clan system. So if you plan to live on the reservation, you need to make sure your wife's from a very beautiful community, has running water, electricity, and you'll have a good chance of survival. So if I was to, my wife of 32 years now, Lorinda, she's from Saley Wheatfields, and it's a beautiful country in the Chishka Mountain area. So that's where we were able to get a home site. And so that's how the system works within the Navajo Nation. And this, you really created some big questions here. And so last night I was with my son who's attending here at UNM, working on his master's in English. I posed these questions to him, and he had complete answers, different answers than mine, of course. And but really, when I think about this question, the boldest opportunity, the nation is, if you want to see our economic conditions, all of the data, this year we completed a SEDS report with EDA, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Report. And in that report, it defines all of the economy of the Navajo Nation. It's a comprehensive report. It's free to the public. It's on my Navajo, NavajoEconomy.org is our website. And you can find that all of the data regarding our economy. We're spread from Arizona to New Mexico to Utah. We don't exist in Colorado. And then there's 110 chapters across the Navajo Nation. So that's 110 local governments that exist within the nation. So if we were all Navajo here, everyone would identify themselves with their clan, and they would say, I'm from this chapter area. And so that's our uniqueness of the Navajo Nation. And the boldest opportunity to create a legacy is to invest in Navajo Nation. I think that's what I heard all day was invest into New Mexico. In the nation, we need investment to support our long-term growth. The most recent investment was $88.7 million grant from U.S. Treasury to implement the State Small Business Credit Initiative within the Navajo Reservation. And over the next 10 years, the nation will invest $177 million to the Navajo economy using the SSBCI one-to-one match requirement. And, part of the problems we have in the nation is our bureaucracy, getting things done timely. And so to go around that corner, we partnered with a nonprofit organization, a 501c3 native-led, native-controlled company from Tuba City called Change Labs. And so Change Labs then partnered with lenders to implement this program. So the partners include First Southwest Bank, Usenda Credit Union from here, Native Community Capital, and Native American Bank. So the grant is a performance-based grant, and it's distributed in 3 tranches, and we have to perform. It's a performance-based grant. So to receive the first tranche, 80% has to be lent out. The second tranche, 100% of the first tranche, then you can receive the second tranche. The third tranche is 100%, 80% of the second tranche, then you can receive the third tranche. Total investment is $88.7 million. so conclusively invested in the nation is our future, our legacy. And that's
Great.
our boldest opportunity we have.
Okay,
currently.
I think you covered the spectrum of everything we're going to talk about. So really great intro. Partnerships, investment, entrepreneurship, get out of the way. All right, we got it. Talking and building upon this idea that New Mexico has been around for so long, we've got rich culture, history, legacy of entrepreneurship. Representative Dixon, as the policymaker up here, what motivates you most about this entrepreneurial spirit that is around in every community? How does that shape your approach to your legislative duties?
So with that question, it makes me think of creative thinking. And so I associate entrepreneurs with creative thinking, and also having some level of expertise in, whatever it is that they're promoting or building in terms of a company or product. So for me, how it translates as a legislator and policymaker is I'm not the expert. And so I need to hear from the experts, the entrepreneurs. And when we talk about some of the problems that we have in New Mexico, how do we solve them? I do think we have to be creative in how we do that. I don't know that I have a good example. Well, I just think that a lot of times the legislature or government, we look to the easiest option on how to pay for something or how to structure a program, and it's not always the best. And so I think that the more creative we can be in trying to solve the problem, the better.
Great. So Deputy, I've got a question for you regarding many of the insights we heard today were from varied backgrounds and industries. New Mexico, we're lucky to be considered a place that supports some really cutting edge industries like aerospace, film, renewable energy. How can government avoid the slowing down of innovation while playing an active role and being a supporter?
Yeah, thank you. So actually, Representative Dixon mentioned the line I was going to use, but she used it first, which is innovation must be private sector led and government enabled. And I added on the catalyzed. So for example, New Mexico is one of fewer than half the states in the nation that provide funds for SBR grantees. And these are innovations for these are grants for innovating companies working to redevelop and commercialize new technologies. They receive federal funds for R&D and receive other state funds for business development as well. Additionally, one other thing that we can talk about is we'll be advocating for getting out of the way, separate from separate from innovation is site readiness programs. So creating opportunities where we have shovel-ready sites for manufacturers, for any other innovation that comes in to cut down the construction costs, cut down the time to opening and getting the businesses off the ground.
Great. All right, and this next question is for Emerson. So we know that the Navajo Nation is unique in its economic systems. And so you mentioned the support right now that you have from the national level SSBCI funding. Can you talk about how you see collaboration with government entities, whether it's state or federal, that enhance or complement these systems more so?
Yes, I before I do that, I just wanted to do a shout out to the first group the first group of entrepreneurs. They talked about getting to know us, the Navajo, the Native American entrepreneurs. And one of the comments was our humor. So before we get started, I'd like to state a joke here, okay? So why does a Navajo have weeds around its house? Why does a Navajo have weeds around its house?
Why?
Because they never hoe. And I can say that because I'm half Navajo and half Hopi. So when the Navajo and Hopi fought, they called it joint use. It was a joint use war over land. So I'm JUA, I'm part of both. So I can tease both sides. So the question, how do we collaborate with the state and federal government, enhancing or complementing those systems? And, I believe it's important to our success and long-term economic growth. We need the partnerships and collaboration with entities such as UNM Innovation Center and others. I sat here and I just told somebody, I've never heard of the Innovation Center. I never knew this existed until we had a meeting with Pacheco, Ms. Pacheco. And then I started to learn more about the Innovation Center and what it does and how it helps entrepreneurs. So I was thinking about how I would respond. And in my study at Northern Arizona University, I was taking a course in Navajo. In this book I read, it described in the 1800s, how did the cavalry know the Navajo were nearby? So he was talking about Albuquerque. They knew they were nearby because they could smell the mutton roasting. So that was the past. And then today we're actually here. So we didn't have to bring any mutton to attend, but we're collaborating now with the center. We're invited. So I'm really honored. Really, it's just so much good information. It's just, so I'm really excited. And so thank you for the invitation on behalf of the Navajo Nation, on behalf of President Boo Nygren and my division director, Mr. Tony Scorlanis, who couldn't be here today. They're at the State of the Nation address in Tuba City. So I'm in his place. I'm his substitute. So collaborating with U.S. Treasury to capture the $88.7 million SSBCI program funds to invest in our reservation was one example. And then this is another example of the collaboration. So yes, collaboration with the state and federal governments is necessary for long-term growth. Very, very important. And it's just good to see other Native Americans here who are part of this whole innovation. It's awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Johanna,
Sure.
can I add to that? I think
Please.
it's exciting, the projects that the Navajo Nation is leading on. And I think the state could be a better partner. I think that there are so many opportunities right now with federal funding where the state can partner and reach out and serve as a collaborator with the Navajo Nation and private industry, particularly in the clean energy sector. I think there are just so many opportunities. And so I would like to see the state really lean into that collaborative possibility.
Great insight. And very timely because we have a session coming up that we can really explore those partnerships. So good point. So building off of this excitement that we've heard all day long, we're inspired. Unfortunately, the reality is government can be seen as overly bureaucratic. We can get in the way, we can step on toes, we can slow things down. I don't know if maybe I'm just making that up. And the reality is we want to be good partners. We want to be supportive. We want to try to figure out solutions. And I would love to hear from all of you, especially to share with this great group. What are some examples that you're seeing in your communities and your networks that are examples of government adapting to this quick speed to support innovation? And how can we all continue to improve and make these adjustments as we go? Isaac, Deputy, you're right next to me. So
All right, I get the
putting
first.
you on
I
the
get the
spot.
first shot. To share a little bit of my background, for the past 6 years or so, I was in the commercial real estate space, and also Secretary Rob Black was also in the business and entrepreneur side. He was the president and CEO of the New Mexico Chamber. And so one example of at least state government making some making some examples is to hire private individuals who understand the entrepreneurial journey, are and have been entrepreneurs, to get into these state positions. One of the initiatives that we're pushing also is auditing all of the programs and administration that we have to make sure we make it more seamless and adaptable for our entrepreneurs and our business community.
You
So-
Representative.
One of the things that I've sort of learned in the 4 years that I've been a legislator is how challenging it is to write legislation, because deciding what needs to go in legislation versus what you're going to leave to the agency to put in rule is really tricky. I don't know that there's a good rule of thumb, because it sort of depends on how much you trust the agency or the board that's going to be writing the rules. One thing that I believe we are doing a better job of is passing legislation, starting the rule process, and seeing how it plays out. For instance, the Opportunity Enterprise Fund, which was commercial funding, access to commercial loans for, an industrial project in the state. After the first rollout of the application and the first round of awards, we learned that there were some problems with actually the legislation. So we had to go back the next year, tweak the legislation, and then allow them to rewrite some of the rules. So I would say that I find it a continual struggle just to find that right balance, but I do think we're getting much better at being responsive, hearing the concerns, identifying the problems, and making changes for the next go round.
Thank you. Mr. Horst?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. We're talking about what can government do to be more adaptive to meet the speed at which our entrepreneurs need to be able to support innovation. So are you aware of any examples in the Navajo Nation that you're involved with?
Oh my gosh. When I was thinking about this, and this is such a really informative event that had so much information, is broad, and it was good to see all these entrepreneurs here. And I wrote down 3 key drivers I thought were important: is education, technology, and then responsiveness. So one of the participants here told us that the Navajo Nation never answers the phones. Well, that's probably true. So we're changing our phones to voice op. So the voice op will always catch the phone call, catch the message, and it'll default to an email. We've moved all of our networks to Microsoft Office, so we each get 5 licenses. We're moving everything to the cloud base. The Business Industrial Development Fund that I oversee is going cloud, so we can service it across several divisions. Loan origination can be at the 5 regional business development offices. We're wearing HOKAs. It's not a requirement, but HOKAs really support your feet as you get older and you're more agile. You can move to the left, move to the right. And gosh, if we could get bike trails, boy, I was just explaining one of our programs, the SSBCI. It came to the president, DocuSign, the first week of January. All you had to do was DocuSign it, and boom, we could start the program. The money would come to the bank account. Well, it took nearly 11 months to go through our bureaucracy. Finally, we got the check out to our partner Change Labs just before Thanksgiving, the day before. And so, yeah, we really want to change the government process, the bureaucratic process. And so partnering with Change Labs, they're more agile. I'm a Steelers fan, so Change Labs, I can't brag so much about the Steelers today, but in the past, they were rock solid. Change Labs is like the Steelers. We're like the Cowboys, always rebuilding. So, yes, we are
We
really
believe
trying.
in you. We believe in you. There's going to
We-
be a ring one of
Yes.
these days.
So we're trying to be more responsive. We want to hear, we want to make changes, we want to listen, we want to return calls, we want to help our people. It's really important.
Great. Thank you. This next question is for you, Representative, and you hit on it a little bit because we're talking about access to capital. We've talked about some really interesting programs out there, SSBCI, and shout out to NMEDD and their team for rolling that out, as well as NMFA. We've talked about Opportunity Enterprise Fund. As a policymaker, what key elements or innovative solutions do you believe are integral for a policy that can improve access to capital? So you hit a little bit on the mechanics of it and brought up the great point around legislative challenges. Anything you want to add there about specifics for things that need to be in place?
To make a legislation really good for entrepreneurs.
For access, specifically for
Mhm.
access to capital.
So I think for legislation, we probably need to be very, very, very clear on exactly what we want. I think we're experiencing a little bit of growing pains with the venture capital investment program that we set up a few years ago with New Mexico Finance Authority. So once again, we don't have a section in legislation, which I think we ought to, and we used to have, called legislative intent, right? And so that would sort of be the guiding principle for administering the program or creating the rules. We don't do that anymore. And so it's not always, I think agencies or entities do their best to interpret what we wanted. But a lot of times it's not exactly what we had hoped or what we were really going for.
Got it. Very helpful. So Deputy, this is a question for you. Coming off of that concept of these innovative programs that are spurring access to capital, are you aware of new models that are out there currently for investment that could drive entrepreneurial growth in our state?
So I'll start, we have a new office. Well, we have a new division and a relatively new office with the Economic Development Department. I'll start with the division, which is the Creative Industries Division. And that division, this is our first year that we're administering that. And actually, our director is standing up in the back, Shawnee Harvey. Thanks so much for being here. And Arlen Nelson. So them two together, they lead the Creative Industries Division, which is focused on helping creative entrepreneurism. And so they help there. We also have the Office of Strategy, Science, and Technology. And we actually have a representative of our office there, Michael, back there. So thanks so much. But OSST, they have a handful of new grants and opportunities. And, building off of what Representative Dixon was mentioning, legislative intent, the legislature appropriated an additional significant amount of money to the department, $5 million, but there was no specific direction for that. However, because of partnership and relationships, we had conversations to make sure that those funds were deployed with that intent. And so some of those, we're focused on grants, pilot programs, contract work to help prioritize and focus on science and technology startups grants, in the advanced energy research and team pitch awards, and New Mexico Quantum Technology Award Pilot Program. So there's various ways that we're deploying that. And so that's where we're kind of coming from there.
Great.
Can I just give a shout out to the Economic Development Department for doing a great job utilizing those funds and following legislative intent.
Hear, hear.
Thank you.
All right, this is a question for the panel, and it's a bit of a pop quiz because especially at the local level, I know Representative, you deal with this a lot as well as at the state and you with the Navajo Nation, Mr. Horst, but we have a lot of competing needs considering the economic landscape right now. And it's challenging to figure out where are you going to make an investment and how far does that buck stretch? So this pop quiz, I'm going to ask you, which of the following government funding priorities do you believe would have the most significant impact in long-term growth? And this is going to resonate with different folks, but one is investing in early stage companies. Two, supporting existing and expanding businesses. And number three, enhancing workforce to address current and future gaps. So would love to put you on the spot if anyone wants to chime in and share how you would prioritize those that exist in all of our communities, those needs.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start us off. So I think the answer is all of them.
Cheater.
Well,
come
and you know, when I get asked questions that it's either or, why not both? We can have both. I mean,
True.
as the business owners and the entrepreneurs in the room, they don't like this or that. Why can't we have both? Right? And so we can, or all. And I believe that, you know, from an abundance standpoint, we can. So, for example, you know, I already talked about what EDD is doing with the Office of Strategy. Some of the other investments that or opportunities that our department has, you've heard from some recipients earlier today, the Job Training Incentive Program, JTIP, the Local Economic Development Act, LEDA. These are some methods that we're deploying there. And additionally, you know, we're looking with partnerships with the Higher Education Department and the Workforce Solutions Department to ensure that these are being deployed and leveraged appropriately.
Okay, I was trying to go last, but you'll go last. Okay, all right. So if I had to pick one, which was what I was asked to do, I would pick the startups because I think that Victor did a great job in his keynote at lunch talking about why supporting and investing startups are so important to the economy. As a legislator, one of the things that I really try to look at when making decisions about possible legislation or where to appropriate funds is return on investment. And I don't think that our state, you know, I don't know that we always take that into consideration when times are tough and we have to pick and choose, because there have been a lot of times where the budget has been really tight and we haven't been able to do everything. So what one thing are we going to do? I will say that I sort of am on a crusade this session to remind legislators that, you know, New Mexico is a wonderful place to live, and we have some really phenomenal programs. And there are some programs that may continue to grow. And I'm speaking of social programs and sort of our safety nets. But we need to have continued revenue and additional sources of income for the state if we want to expand some of the opportunities for New Mexicans, like tax cuts for low-income families. Those are a recurring expense, and we need to grow the economy to make sure that we're paying for it. So I really like to look at return on investment, the facts and details behind the decision. And so I would go with option number one.
Okay. I would go with the invested in early stage startups.
Hey, 2 votes.
It's priority for the nation. And really because it's the, you know, that's the high business failure, you know, the high business failure rates in the first 5 years of startup businesses. So we want to target early stage startups. That's important for our division. And we have partners like Change Labs of Tuba City. We also have 5 regional business development offices that specifically help entrepreneurs with their business startups. And then we also now have the SBDC Small Business Training. So we're able to partner with local community colleges to provide technical assistance training as well. And then we are applying for a SSBCI technical assistance grant from U.S. Treasury. So we're really placing a lot of emphasis on small businesses. Recently, we received several $billions from the ARPA, the Economic Relief from Treasury, to support all of the impact to the Navajo Nation. And within that fund that we received, we established a economic relief for artisan and small businesses. So we set aside about $30 million, and then we basically provided economic relief from $5,000 for artisans up to $60,000 for small businesses. And we created a portal, we established a database, we hired a vendor, and then applicants came. Once they heard the money was available for their hardship from COVID, we were able to get a census on our small businesses. So when CARES very first came out in 2020, we had our first program through a vendor called Baker Tilly. Then the second ARPA came, we had a company called Building Nations. And this recent company we hired was HN4. From all that data, we helped almost 6,500 small businesses, entrepreneurs with economic relief. So that was a important number for us because it kind of gives us a gauge as to the number of small businesses on the Navajo Nation. So that was a good census for us. So the percentage of those businesses that will fail is pretty high. So we want to really emphasize helping the small businesses, the entrepreneurs. And, you know, I know it's frustrating. I've heard earlier from comments from people talking about doing business on the nation. And as a former entrepreneur, yes, it is difficult to say the least. But we are trying to change our model to really help our Navajo entrepreneurs.
Great. Thank you. And in honor of time, I'm going to skip to a question and pitch that to the whole panel. And I'd love to hear your take, your brief take on, considering we have so many rural entrepreneurs across the state. We have groups that are underrepresented. We know that many shades of those groups can be faced with systemic barriers, especially in their business journey. And I'd love to get your take on what big ideas and steps should government take to level the playing field and to create change, to address these barriers. And I'd also love to add in there, if you specifically, Mr. Horse, if you have some insight too from the Navajo Nation, how can government ensure that values, especially cultural values, are supported rather than eroded? So if anyone wants to take a stab at that double question, do you want to go first and share your insights there?
Well, you know,
We got to make these lightning rounds too.
Lightning rounds, right. So our partner, Change Labs, is addressing this question by listening to their customers, designing their services according to their customers. And so they've really created a good model where they're able to help the customers really identify what the needs are, what's the barriers, what are the problems. And they've created a unique lending program called the kinship lending. So in that program, it's not driven by your credit so much as it's driven by your character and your technical assistance training that they provide. So we're going to have some graduates pretty soon here from them with the SSBCI money. So it's a unique program, and yay, you know, we're encouraging and we're helping entrepreneurs.
Wonderful. Thank you. Representative, do you want to take a stab at
Sure.
answer?
So one of the things that we've been doing recently with legislation, the match fund is a good example of sort of trying to level the playing field for some of our rural and underserved communities. And what we can do is we can write parameters into the legislation, saying a certain percent needs to go to counties with fewer than X number of people. That way, there's at least guidance for the distribution of those resources. I also think that, and probably we should appropriate more money to our departments to make sure that they are getting out and that all the communities know the various programs and funding sources that we have. I think that's a gap, and it's probably just an issue of resources.
Great, thank you. Deputy?
Absolutely. So one of the first things that I'll mention is several years ago, Economic Development Department started the JEDI office, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion office. And that office focuses on providing grants, and they provide grants. They help provide technical assistance. We also host 2 business summits a year, one of which is entirely in Spanish, which is really incredible opportunity. I think we're kind of leading the nation there. Let's see. Additionally, we also have our economic development representatives, many of which are here in the crowd, and you've probably met some of them, but they're doing the day-to-day across the state and interacting with businesses of all sizes and industries. And they have the privilege of sharing our message and all of the programs that we offer. So that's one piece there. Additionally, the tourism department actually has a piece that we're looking to leverage, which is the Marketing Center of Excellence, which is effectively, it's in the infancy, but we're hoping to leverage their capacity to get out and do more branding for department programs, and make sure that we're doing a better job of marketing and getting out to the state. My job previously in the commercial real estate world was, I always saw it as a marketer. And so that's the lens I'm looking at a lot of these programs through.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'm gonna put the reps on, the EDD reps. Louise and Yori are here, Shawnee in the back, Arlen, but fantastic people to meet if you don't know them already. Really appreciative of all their work. Okay, we're getting close to time. I believe we want to be efficient and end. We got a little bit of a late start, so I'm going to do one more all panel, and then we'll have a closing question too, if that sounds good. So you talked about we're a leader regarding our ability to translate and our Spanish programs. So I'd love for you all to share your big vision of what would it look like if New Mexico in 10 years is a leader in the entrepreneurial space. If anyone wants to jump in, what steps do we have to take to get to be one of the best places for entrepreneurial innovation? You want to kick it
That's-
off, Mr. Horse?
Yeah, is that the last question?
We'll have this one and one more
Oh,
question.
okay. Oh, yeah. So you're asking, okay, so,
Your big vision for what steps we need to take to be a great,
okay, you
Great.
changed the question, so
I'll jump in here.
Okay.
So
I'm
Yeah,
keeping
yeah.
you on your toes a little bit. Same concept, but if we want to be a national leader in entrepreneurialism, what is that going to look like in 10 years in 2035? And what steps do we have to get there?
Sure. So one of the things that the state's working on, and it's going to be pretty robust and digestible and actionable, is the state plan, which is going to allow, and it will allow, we should be releasing it tomorrow, actually, heads up. Yes, finally. So it's effectively, that's a document that we can hold up to say, okay, where do we want to go? What steps do we need to take to get there? And when we're looking at policies, this is our guide. This can become our guide so we can get there in 10 years. Because ultimately we want to grow, we want to expand, and we want to be fruitful as a state. And starting with this plan helps us get there. So that's, well, I'll start there so we don't take up too much more time.
Okay.
So piggybacking on that, having a plan, I think that we know what New Mexico needs to do. I think we all talk about it. We have some of the best resources in this state with intellectual capital, our renewable energy sources. I think it's a matter of investing and investing with a sense of purpose and urgency. I don't think that we can do it with half measures or little drips and drops of money or making one tweak to legislation. I think that the state needs to commit right now to making an investment in our strategic sectors.
Great, thank you.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. So what does success look like for Navajo Nation regarding innovation, entrepreneurship? What does that look like? And what steps does Navajo Nation as well as New Mexico need to take to be seen as a leader in that space?
Okay. So the nation every 4 years creates a comprehensive economic development strategy plan. And that's on our website, navajoeconomy.org. And it's a tool. It's like a business plan. It's a guide. It gives all of our plans for development so that when we apply to EDA for any grants, they see that information and that data. So that is a step toward further economic development. And I know we have a number of projects going on across the nation. A new casino in Flagstaff. We recently bought a lodge, and we're going to convert that. We've converted that to trust land. We're going to convert that into a casino within the city of Flagstaff. There's the rail. That's a planned transport from Farmington down to Gallup to basically begin to move product on that rail system. So there's a number of projects that there's a long list of plans that are going into place right now. But so our model is based upon that strategy.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, do you mind if I add one more thing that popped in my head? One of the other things that New Mexico is already established in is quantum, and we're very well positioned for that. So for the next 10 years, as long as we make really strong decisions and push towards that could be an excellent opportunity for New Mexico to leverage.
Great, thank you. Last and final lightning quick question to wrap up the role of government supporting entrepreneurs, economic development with this really incredible panel. So I'm going to throw out to you, what in one sentence or a few brief ones is your call to action for New Mexico leaders, entrepreneurs, community members to drive a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem? Let's bring it home.
So what I would want to tell everyone here is in one sentence. Make sure the leadership in the state understands that we have to invest now and support our entrepreneurs now.
Spoken like a polished politician, leader like you are. Thank you so much for that. Really well said. And let's take it to the legislature this session.
My one sentence is, let's work together to build a thriving New Mexico together. And my phone number is on our EDD website.
Great. So let's give you a call and have coffee. Okay.
Okay, mine's several sentences. I believe continue to conclude the Navajo Nation in events like this today. We learn from each other's perspective how to work together. We learn the needs of each other and invest in the Navajo Nation. Get to know us.
I love it. What great insights. Thank you so much. I don't know if we want to have questions. Do we have time? We're right at the hour. I'm getting a shaking nod. There is one question. However, his phone number is on the website and you can follow up. Thank you so much again to Lisa and to Kara for the amazing day, for all of the panelists. Thank you so much to these great leaders. They do incredible work. Please get involved in your legislative sessions and know your representative.